So we just dropped out for a moment. So if somebody's watching this for the second time, it's because it dropped out. I didn't notice that it dropped out. But I was just saying to Avery that one of the things that happened recently was there were three members of three judges who all decided that the crap that Giuliani was presenting to the court was just crap. And one of them in particular, they were all conservative judges. One of them in particular was nominated by Trump, and he was the one that got the final judgment. And at the end of the day, they said, no fraud. You can't come to us and present conspiracy theories, and you have to have something substantive to present to us. So the result being, I think, that you kind of wonder when they're going to give up. But the point that I was trying to make before we got cut off, Avery, was that there seems to be a strong desire from right-wing media to present an argument that suggests that it isn't hopeless, that there is a chance that there will be something that could miraculously happen. And of course, now they're looking for the individual state houses in order to turn the election around, so that not turn the election around, but simply just hand it over to Trump, I guess.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking this could only happen in America. Like, I cannot conceive of anything this bizarre happening in Australia. And I just wonder whether that's because they have this presidential system where so much power rests with the president, and particularly with the courts. And in our sort of system, which is the Westminster system, it doesn't.
Yeah, I think the Westminster system is superior because the winner is the person or the party that got the most votes.
Yeah.
Where in the United States, George W. Bush, he did win, but it was a minority of. He had a minority of votes. Donald Trump had a minority of votes, but because the Electoral College, which was set up 230 years ago to protect the rural communities from the big cities, so they wouldn't be drowned out by them. Maybe 230 years ago, maybe 100 years ago, it was a reasonable thing to do, but not now.
No, I don't understand. But sometimes I think, am I going crazy because I don't see things exactly the same way that these other people do? And is it because I'm missing out on something? Is it because I just have a very rigid and stern view about how we should present facts and what we should be looking for? Because I'm convinced that if there was any indication of fraud whatsoever, even under the American, unscrupulous system, one would expect it to be able to determine whether fraud was present or not.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
Yeah, I do. I mean, the thing with all these claims of fraud, yesterday he was saying that there was 650,000 votes were thrown out in Pennsylvania. Right? Well, that's about 10% of the population. And it was only Trump votes that were thrown out. There was no Biden votes were thrown out.
Yep.
You asked why are the right-wing media in the United States the way they are? Why the right-wing media here the way they are? Because they're divorced from reality.
But why?
They can't face the idea that a socialist will be the president or the prime minister.
Yeah, well, it is debatable. I don't think Biden's not a socialist, though.
That's what they call him, though.
Yeah. Well, they give him, scare the masses away from all those socialist things that they do. They have plenty of socialist activities and programs anyway in the US.
Yeah, they've got Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, the food stamps.
Yep.
All that sort of stuff. It's all social. It's all socialist. They're social programs, all right?
Yeah.
And 70% of the people a report I saw yesterday, 70% of the people support all of those programs.
Yep.
Right? The right wing, they have got this idea in their head that if you want to do something to help the people, you must be a communist. But the left wing have got the idea that if you don't want to do something for the people, you must be a fascist, and they're both wrong.
But I can't believe that. Look, I can understand that if you've got this corporate notion around politics that it is about the survival of the fittest, and we don't really care about anybody that can't drag themselves up from their shoelace strings or whatever.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that there are that many of those sorts of thinking people out there who would who don't pay any attention to the people that do struggle and the reasons why they struggle, and try to rectify the struggle. Because at the end of the day, they're the people that get them in. I mean, Trump's voters are those people. I mean, they're blue collar workers.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump hasn't assisted them one iota, but they vote for him because they believe at the end of the day he's the one that's going to make a real difference to how they lead their lives.
I think a lot of the people that voted for him did so not because they think that he will make changes that will improve their lives in the way of increased salaries, for example, or more affordable medication. It'll change their lives by stopping those damn Mexicans coming across the border and taking their jobs. It'll stop those Muslims coming in and blowing up the country. Yeah, that is what he appealed to.
Yeah, so he will find. So they believe that at some level, their level of fear will be assuaged because Trump will deal with those issues that cause them to be fearful.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, they've been brought up to believe that Mexicans are taking their jobs, that Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers and things like that. And sure, some of them are fine people. All right.
Sure.
People were thinking that long before Trump came along. Long before Trump stuck his hand up and said, "I want to be a politician."
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
They were thinking that already.
But it goes back to the George Wallace days, back in the 60s.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. So, and I guess one of the issues too is that in their society, and to some extent in our own, that those issues have been under the surface for quite some time, that forever, in fact. The sense of racism and stuff has been there, and this, this American sense of exceptionalism. It always amazes me that somehow, they have so many faults as a nation, as do we all, I guess, but theirs seem to rise to the surface in a very profound way.
Yeah, but they've had. It was 400 years ago this year that the first African slaves arrived. Sorry, the first African people who'd been kidnapped from their home country arrived in the United States and were sold off. 400 years ago today. It took until I think it was 1865 with the Emancipation Proclamation for them to be freed. I think it was a voting act around about 1920 that allowed them to vote. Right? And the Republicans recently passed the voting right, a couple of years ago, passed the Voting Rights Act, which basically gutted a lot of the rights that people had fought and died for. Yeah. And who is the most impacted by that? African Americans, Native Americans, Hispanics, Muslim immigrants. They're the ones that are impacted. Not Jim Bob living in Kentucky. Right? It's Manuel who's come from Guatemala. It's Ishmael who's come from Syria. It's Jamal whose great grandparents were born in Ghana.
Yep.
All the gutting of the Voting Rights Act that they've done is attacking those people.
Yeah.
Those people, particularly the African Americans, not so much with the Hispanics, it depends on where their ancestors are from. With the larger percentage of the African Americans that vote Democrat.
Yeah.
With a Hispanic, if their ancestors are from Cuba, they tend to vote Republican because the Republicans are completely opposed to anything to do with Cuba. All right, if they're from Mexico, Guatemala, places like that, they tend to vote Democrat, and most of them tend not to vote at all, which is even worse.
So, yeah. So I just want to come back to the original question I was thinking about why I decided to have this feed was the right wing, I've changed it now, right wing media will not let go, and that they hold. So I'm wondering, what's in it for them to want to believe in stuff which is blatantly untrue or unfounded or unproven, for that matter?
That is, it would be easier for me to build a bridge across the Pacific Ocean than it would be to answer that question. Why do people fall for these adopt these conspiracy theories? No idea.
But
Why do the right wing? Why do the Alec Joneses of this world, the Glenn Becks or whatever his name? I can't remember the guy. Something like that.
Yeah, Glenn Beck.
Yeah. Why do people like that want a president like Trump?
Because those people,
because he will appoint right wing judges, right? And what their hope is that once they get if they get them into the Supreme Court, then Roe v. Wade is gone.
Yeah, I understand those reasons, but I also think that there are people like Jones and Beck who are just performers.
Oh yeah,
and this is the way. I think Donald Trump is one of them.
He's a reality.
Donald Trump hasn't got an ideological bone in his body.
No,
he doesn't believe in anything apart from himself.
That is it. He would throw Ivanka under the bus if he thought he'd benefit from it.
Yeah, well, yeah, and so. And I think that there's this bank of people that are the Joneses and Becks of this world, and to some extent, some of those people we see on, Murray and
Miranda
Bolt
Devine and Bolt.
Yes, they kind of fit partway into that, I think. But it's almost like they see an opportunity to exploit a situation for their own personal gain.
Yeah,
and they do it by living and acting in this fake universe that they've developed, right? and there are lots of people that say it's like people look at some of these reality TV shows and they don't realise how artificial they actually are.
Yeah.
They think that this is the reality that these people are actually living.
Yeah, nothing real about it at all.
And they know it's set up by producers and certain bits and pieces are cut out and all that sort of stuff. And I think Donald Trump and some of these people live in this world. But then there's a lot of people, but the majority of people don't. No. Really. The majority of the people simply want things to be different. And the majority of the politicians, I think, see it for what it is. But in the US, they're not, just like some of the media, are not prepared to talk about actually what it does mean. Them.
Yeah, you used a phrase a little while ago, which I think in a lot of ways nails it, and that's the corporate culture.
Yeah,
the people, the Koch brothers, pumped about $1 billion into the presidential campaign in 2016. All right. Bernie Sanders, he was getting $25 donations. All right, not $100 million donations. Another thing that needs to be changed in the United States in the electoral system is the financing of it. We need that change here as well. I mean, Parliament here is going through right now. There are bills before Parliament about changing the donation legislation for political parties. The United States needs to address that as well. The drug prices have dropped a little bit in the USA. About 5 or 6%. There's a drug called Travadan, which here costs $38, right? In the United States, it's $1,300. It's used to treat AIDS.
Unbelievable.
Or HIV. It's a very effective drug used in the treatment of HIV/AIDS. $38 here, right? $1,300 in the United States. It was about $1,600. So the price has come down, but the people that drive it, right, are the pharmaceutical companies who put big bucks into Republicans, and they put big bucks into the Democrat Party as well, but not as much as in the Democrats as they do in the Republicans, because the Democrats say we want to sort out the pharmaceutical companies so that, to get drug prices down to something realistic that people can afford. When you've got somebody who's got to say, do I feed my kids or do I have insulin today? What kind of country is that?
Yep. Well, it's the United States.
It's the United States. It's the richest country on the planet. And owning a gun is a right. Having decent health care is a privilege.
Yeah, it's crazy.
There's something wrong there.
Absolutely crazy. And yeah, and those sort of things I don't understand. Like, I don't understand the gun culture, because here in Australia we don't even know where to freaking go and buy a gun. And we don't carry them around with us, and very few people that I know. In fact, I don't know if anybody's got a gun. Look, so does this play part of this this video, and then if you want to comment about it, Avery, at some particular point, just ask me to stop it, and we'll have a chat. But this is Hargraves. I don't know who he is actually, but it's on Sky News. He's talking to Bronwyn Bishop and this woman with this strange thing in her hair that looks like she's 12. So we'll have a discussion around this in just a moment.
O'clock news. I have not lost faith that there is a process and an outcome, and whether it's Biden or Trump or Biden, I hope it's Trump, because we need that strength in that position. But I wanted to be sure as to what's happened. There's some dodgy stuff that's happened. It's been like the second biggest miracle after Jesus took 2 loaves and 5 fishes and fed a multitude at a Sermon on the Mount, because they've taken a couple of 100,000 votes and turned them into a couple of millions in umpteen states around America. I mean, Daisy, it does have biblical proportions, this cheating that's been alleged.
Look, it's fairly extraordinary.
Yep.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that? This cheating that's been alleged?
This cheating, a greater miracle than the feeding of the 5,000.
I knew you'd love the biblical reference.
Oh, God. I mean, I'm saying that, and I don't believe in things like that, because there's no reason for anybody to believe in it. This guy.
I just think Jesus was a very fine carver.
He was a carpenter.
No, he was a carver. You know,
A
like
carver.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he was just very fine at carving that fish.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a very small slither.
Yeah.
Of
Oh, I could talk about that, but that's not what we're here for.
No, we're not. We can do that another time, though.
We certainly could.
Yeah.
Yeah. Noah's Ark,
that'd be
one of my favourite stories.
That'd be a whole day's things that matter, mate.
Yeah. He says that he wants Trump as president because of his strength. Trump's only strength is that he loves Trump. He is a weak man. He's got the most fragile ego that I've ever come across for anybody. You say, Donald, your hair is out of place, and he will kill you. You know, he will go out of his way to destroy you. Right? He is so fragile that the thought of him, you know, that somebody else would beat him, he just can't take it.
Yeah, and I love that bit where so there's 2 things, I think, where he said it at some of his rallies, you know, he said how humiliating it would be to lose against.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that he'll move to Canada. And Canada's at the moment are putting...
They'd close the borders if he tried that.
They're putting out their own wall to prevent him from getting in.
Yeah.
What was the other thing he did? Oh, that's right. At a press conference yesterday, someone asked him if he's going to concede, and he got really angry at the
Yeah,
reporter.
don't you talk to me like that. I'm the
I'm
president.
the president of the United States. I would have said, to him, get effed.
Yeah.
We don't. It's like, and it is this overwhelming, all-encompassing ego that he has, that he believed protected him from everything. So one of the best discussions at the moment are about are there going to be criminal cases brought against him once he leaves?
He can pardon himself all he wants, but only against federal crimes.
But I heard someone
crimes against the state of New York are being investigated right now. Letitia James, I think her name is.
But I heard a professor say the other day that even pardoning himself is contestable.
Yeah, because if he pardons himself, he's doing it with corrupt intent.
No, the issue. But the issue is that the Constitution refers to pardoning somebody else.
Yeah.
He's not somebody else. He can't pardon. He has to pardon other people.
Yeah,
It doesn't say that he can pardon himself.
A Republican lawyer who worked on the Bush-Gore case,
Yep.
Ben, I can't think of his last name, but he said that if Trump was to pardon himself, could and should be challenged in the courts because the reason for pardoning is corrupt. Right? He also pointed out, as John Dean has pointed out, and a couple of others, that if somebody is pardoned, right, they've got to accept the pardon. They've got to say, yes, I'll take it, because it gets them out of jail, it gets them off death row or whatever. they've got to take it. To take that, they're admitting guilt.
Oh yes, I heard that argument as well.
Yeah. So if Trump pardons himself, he's saying, yes, I'm guilty of everything that you've accused me of, but now there's nothing you can do about it. And the answer is, yes, we can challenge it in the courts.
Or if he pardons his sons, then he has to pardon them. He has to pardon them for it's acknowledging a crime.
Yeah.
For which he is pardoning them for.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why
would you do that? Why would you? Unless you knew specifically that there was something further down the track that your son or you or somebody else is going to be taken to court over, then you wouldn't do it, would you?
He could pardon his son, Don Jr., right? He could pardon him for federal crimes. Yeah. And the circuit judges in the federal circuits could challenge it. Yeah. They could say, that was done for corrupt intent because Don Jr. has got information about Don Sr. And that's why we think he did that, and they could challenge it. And the thing is, if the challenge wins and it gets through the Supreme Court and they uphold the thing, say, no, you can't pardon somebody for crimes that they haven't been convicted of, which is basically what Trump Sr. would be doing. If the SCOTUS came down on that side, then now you've got precedent set, and it sorts it out for all future presidents. If Trump was to pardon himself for crimes that he might be charged with, all right, if he pardons himself for the 11 obstruction charges that should have been brought in the Mueller report, that's an admission that I was obstructing obstructing justice in that.
Yeah, but
if he pardons himself for other things that haven't been brought to light yet, that might come to light if the Justice Department does its job starting on January the 20th and investigates all of his behavior. That could be challenged, and if it succeeds, if it gets through the SCOTUS and succeeds, now you've not the challenge, but they say if SCOTUS agrees, the president can't pardon himself. That is set a precedent for the future. If they say he can if he wants, then they've also set a precedent for the future, and that's a dangerous precedent because now Joe Biden could go and do exactly sort of crap that Trump has done, and then pardon himself. He could decide he doesn't like Don Jr., so he goes and puts a couple of rounds in the back of his head, and then immediately pardon himself.
Yeah,
And
well, I reckon Don Jr. should just be pardoned for being Don Jr.
Don Jr., yeah.
You know, I mean, why would you be thrilled about having someone like Donald Trump's name with you, for God's sake? So let's just, we diverted, but let's get back to it.
I just had to say that.
On, and certainly contrary to what is being reported in the vast majority of the American media and a lot of the Australian media, might I add, the claims that the Trump campaign...
I've just got to say, Avery, who is this woman?
Daisy Cousins. That's all I know about her. And she looks like she's been attacked by a garden centre. You know, dragged through one.
Look, I'm sure she's just the most. I'm sure Avery, she's the most loveliest woman on the face of this planet, just with an extreme set of views that no one ever really likes.
Yeah.
But she's a bit of a character.
Making of not even election. I mean, fraud implies intent, but election irregularities, illegal instructions given by Kathy Booker, who's the Secretary of State of Pennsylvania. The legitimacy of the count. The fact a lot of Republican poll watchers were not granted what they call meaningful access to watch the count, which means that according to Trump personal attorney Rudy Giuliani, about 682,000 votes in Pennsylvania are potentially unlawful because they were not observed according to the law. There's an interesting...
It's a lot of votes.
Do you want to say something about that?
That is garbage. They not granted meaningful access.
But that's the bit that the judge threw out.
Yeah.
The judge knew that the amount of votes that were cast were far greater than any allegations against fraud anyway.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't going to happen. And here she is trying to make the case for something which just is so erroneous, it's laughable.
Yeah. The other thing that she was saying about meaningful access, the court case in Pennsylvania that Trump and his cronies put through was that they weren't granted any access to observe. And when the judge asked the question, so you were barred, you were outside? And they said, well, no. And he said, well, where were your people? And they said, well, they were inside. So you weren't banned from observing. No, we had to stand 10 feet away. Well, did you ask if you could stand closer? No. Well, try asking if you could stand closer. They were about 6 feet away. Why were they keeping them 6 feet away? Social distancing because of COVID.
That's right.
Right? But they are Trump and his cronies. They are his criminal gang, not his cronies, his criminal gang, right? Led by Nosferatu, Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah.
They
call him now Leaking Grecian Man.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're so full of crap that it leaks out, that was him.
Yeah.
They are all science deniers.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Just hold on, mate, for a second. You just talk about that for a second. I've got to answer the door.
Yeah. The Trump people, a lot of them are evangelical Christians, and they are science deniers. I spend a lot of time debating with the evangelical Christians. They deny science all the time. Anything that they think might disprove their God, they're going to vote against and argue against. And a lot of Trump's gang are evangelical Christians. As I said, they deny the science that shows that COVID is real. They call it a hoax because Trump called it a hoax, and they've got to go along with what their dear leader has to say. Sounds like Tony's back. Might be just putting his gear back on.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's never happened to me before. I haven't got any family members at home at the moment, so I had to race out and grab a package of something which they told me wasn't going to be delivered because it was broken in transit. So much for Amazon.
Yeah, I was just saying, which you'll see when you watch the video later, that a lot of it, they're all science deniers, and one of the reasons there's an awful lot of science deniers is because the hypocrites in the evangelical community vote for him.
Yep.
And they are hypocrites because they don't practice what they're preaching.
No. Do they know what they're preaching? Do they believe in what they're preaching?
I know what they claim.
Yeah.
Right, and then I see what they do.
Yeah.
In the Bible, it says you judge them by their fruits. Well, their fruit.
So you do believe in let's not go there. So you do believe in aspects of the Bible, then obviously, turn the other cheek.
No, I just happen to know that. Oh, that's got nothing to do with the Bible. That's 600.
Let's not go there. I forget. Avery, forget I even said that.
Yeah, we will.
We will have. Look, I just want to let the voluminous number of people that watch this shows. We will have that discussion at a later date.
Yeah,
we've been promising actually for a while to have that discussion on religion, haven't we? We've never.
Yeah, we have. We've
never done it.
Let's go back to that video.
Yeah, let's do it
before I start.
Yeah, and we'll save you all. You can, everybody can watch. We'll let everybody know when we're doing the religious thing.
Votes. There's an interesting mathematical analysis of different spikes of votes coming in. There are a lot of sworn affidavits and testimony being put forward in the courts and also in front of the Republican Senate committee. And of course, as we know, legally, and a sworn affidavit filed under penalty of perjury counts as evidence. Whether it's good evidence or whether it proves anything, of course, is up to a judge. But for the media to
want to comment about that, Avery?
Yeah, she said the affidavit is evidence, right? The affidavit.
The affidavit's just a statement that people.
It's a statement.
Yeah, that's right.
Evidence is the something
document.
Else is other documentation and other people who are backing up what you've said in the affidavit.
That's right.
Right? That is not evidence. That is the claim.
So the affidavit would be from someone. So it depends on the validity of the affidavit, because if the affidavit was from somebody who actually had been involved in the manufacture of the software and could state that software was construed to favour Democrats,
it's still a claim.
By a guy who died 7 years ago, then fair enough.
It's still a claim which needs independent, verifiable evidence.
Yeah.
It needs corroboration.
But my guess is it'd have to go to court for that to be proven anyway.
Yeah.
And the judge is saying, no, it can't do that because there's not enough there.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're just proving she knows very little about what she's talking about. Maybe it's those flowers in her hair, mate.
It could be.
Have impacted the way she's able to reason and think logically.
Relentlessly insist that these are baseless claims. There is no evidence. There's no evidence of fraud or irregularities. Is a lie. The media is willfully misleading the public as to the reality of the situation. There's also this insistence that Trump is losing court case after court case after court case. That's also not true. According to Rudy Giuliani,
oh my God, we have to comment. You are. I'm sorry. We try to avoid. Avery, just remember to clean up that mess that's underneath your seat, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh my God.
Don't you reckon that just has to be just a statement of complete ignorance?
Oh my God! Yeah.
That he's not losing court case after court case. He's won 3.
He's won 3.
They've related to things like how far one should stand away from, as an observer from those votes.
Yeah.
But if you're losing 30 odd to 3.
30.
I think it's lost the majority. Is that right?
I think it's 33-3 score
right.
at the moment, or 34-3 at the moment.
Yep.
Because
increasing by the day, mate.
Yeah. And these ones that they, I believe that they're going to be appealed. The 3 that he's won, right? They weren't anything major, right?
They're not significant anyway. Doesn't matter.
No.
Change the vote in Pennsylvania.
If it changes 10 votes, whoopee.
Yep.
Good for Donald. He's got an extra 10 votes.
God,
this young woman, Daisy Cousins, she has drunk the Kool-Aid.
Is her name Daisy?
Daisy
I
Cousins.
wonder she's got those friggin' flowers in her hair.
If she'd been in Jonestown, she'd have drunk the cyanide. Right? That is, and
that is just a stupid thing to say. Yeah.
yeah, you know.
Well, I'm glad you found that entertaining, as did I.
Oh God, yeah.
Let's see what
That's
more
the funniest thing I've heard for ages.
Well, we've got Bronwyn Bishop in a moment. Bronwyn's little bit more stable,
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's not a high bar.
She's verging on the lunatic fringe. You know, this is the woman that took that helicopter to.
Yeah, I say compared to the guy on the left of the screen as we're looking at it, and that young woman on the right, Daisy Cousins. That's not a high bar for the client to get across, is it?
At her age, it'd be terrible for her to have any sort of bar, mate. Believe me.
About 3 cases on the go, and in any case, if a court case gets dismissed, well, one can always appeal to a higher court. You know, it's fairly simple here. And the most important point here is that the media is insisting that Pennsylvania has certified its votes, and so is Michigan, and so is Wisconsin, these other states. So that's it. That's final. That's not the case. Votes can be decertified by a court order, and not only that, Article 2 of the Constitution decrees that it's not up to the courts, it's not up to the governor, it's not up to the Secretary of State.
I don't know about that issue. That can be decertified. The court can order a recount, I guess.
Yeah.
But the court can't say that if you win by 80,000 votes, those votes don't count.
No,
they can't.
I mean that's what Trump and his cronies, the other members of his gang, and what his enablers, people like Daisy Cousins, right, want to do. They just want to throw out any vote that goes against their rigid right wing. Belief system. Donald Trump lost the election, 7 million votes. Right, or 6.5 million votes, whatever it was. He lost the election. He lost the electoral college by about 78 votes, something like that.
Something like that.
Right?
Yep.
They are just sore losers. Get over it, girl. That's what you were saying to. That's what she'd have been if she was out of kindergarten at the time. That's what she'd have been saying to us 4 years ago. People who were so disappointed that Trump won that election. People like her were saying, "You lost. Get over it."
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
Daisy, you lost. Get over it. Build a bridge.
So, but it still raises for me, Avery, that issue that like how I just got to reset this thing now. How why would you want to hold on? Like even. Like the stuff she said is just so untrue.
Yeah.
Why do you believe? Do you believe? I mean, does this sort of person believe the world is flat?
I'm sure she does.
Because
we shouldn't say. I wouldn't be surprised if she believes it's flat. I wouldn't be surprised if when she sees an airplane going past a high altitude, and she sees those little trails behind it, that it's the government trying to turn frogs gay or something like that.
Or that there's some
chemtrails.
And there's some mysterious thing happening in Alaska or somewhere that creates these waves that makes us behave and think the way we do. So we're not thinking independently, we're thinking with the masses, and that we're not capable of making our own decisions because of this other shit. Sort of crap.
One of the problems, as I see it, is that when I was at high school, we were taught critical thinking. I don't think they
critical thinking back in your day, did they?
They certainly did. Yeah, they did. We were taught how critical thinking. Don't just accept something on authority.
No.
Right. And Daisy Cousins there. Donald Trump says something. Rudy Giuliani says something. Well, it must be true because he's the president. And that other one's the mayor of the world or whatever. No, he's a retired mayor. Or not retired. He didn't retire. He was voted out. Right? Just like Donald Trump has been now. Voted out of office.
Yeah.
right? But she takes it on authority because it just ties in with what she already believes.
So is it then? It's an interesting discussion then. So is it that there's a strain of beliefs that a person has that cannot that if confronted by logic and rationality, just rejects it because
Yes.
it would be it would actually affect or infect their psyche to some extent.
They've got this. Yeah, they're dogmatic. They've got this fixed, firm belief that no amount of evidence will change. Right?
Yep.
There is evidence right across the United States that there is no when the claims by the Trump gang have been investigated in the courts, they've not been able to produce a shred of evidence to back up the claim that 682,000 votes were thrown away in Pennsylvania. They've not been able to back up any of the claims that they've made. These three cases that they've won were trivial. They weren't to do with, if I remember, they weren't to do with the number of votes that have been cast or mistakenly assigned or whatever. They were trivial. You know, how that somebody could only stand 6 or 8 feet away. They couldn't go and stand 6 inches away to watch what was going on in the count. They were trivial things.
But
right?
it is.
But
I think I just had a one of those sort of interesting moments where the realization just came to me that it is if your belief system is confronted and you're not prepared to let those beliefs go, then you have to make a choice, don't you, as to who you're going to side with, which side you're going to go on.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about, evangelical Christians or you're talking about evangelical Trump supporters. And by evangelical, the ones that think he's God, right? Not the ones that worship Jesus, the ones that think that Trump is God. Like Trump, he thinks he's God, right?
That's kind of
Those people are so invested in it, all right? People like Daisy Cousins. I don't think Rudy Giuliani's invested in anything, but people like that, or Miranda Devine, who cannot see the flaws in the man and refuse to see them, because if they go and say yes, he is flawed, he is a liar, right? He has got a fragile ego. If they go and say that, it says about them what which they don't want to ask. Why did I support him? What did I see in that person? And they're not prepared to.
But isn't it possible for us to change our? Because I believe that values are flexible. That as we grow up, we grow up with perhaps our parents' set of values because that's what we're taught. I think, or that's what's modelled to us, and then we can change that as we develop, don't we? Because we realise some of the things they did and said were inappropriate, and our values and principles. I know mine personally have changed greatly over the last 30 years. So, so if it's possible to change our values, and therefore, because once we change our values, that influences the beliefs we have, obviously. So, why? I'm still stuck with that question as to why. If you their values are become solidified because that supports their beliefs, maybe. Yeah,
and I think that they get so invested in that that any attack on it that shows that there's something, any attack on what they've invested in that shows that they are wrong. Trump is not a great businessman, for example. He's not the world's greatest businessman. He didn't even write the art of the deal. That was ghostwritten for him. Anything that attacks that is an attack on them.
But it isn't like there haven't been people that have recognised there is a fraud. There are lots of people that voted for it.
Yeah, I mean, Scaramucci is one that leaps to mind. He thought, he's a great guy. And then he got to work with him and got to see what he was actually like. I said, no, he's not a great guy. And Scaramucci is one of his most vocal opponents now.
Well, as is Michael Cohen.
And so, as is Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen changed tack because as soon as he pled guilty or was convicted, or whatever it was, I think he pled guilty to get a reduced sentence. He had to get that reduced sentence. In pleading guilty, he had to cooperate with the New York authorities.
Well, also Trump
Right?
threw him under the bus. Trump was never going to help him.
And when he did that, Trump threw him under the bus.
Yep. So
Right, which is Trump's
modus
operandi. Yeah,
exactly. So
Yeah.
I guess there are. It isn't like everybody is caught under the Trump spell. There are people
No.
that have
Some
made decisions and will continue to make decisions about not siding with him.
Yeah.
But, when we've got these other people like Daisy Bell here, and wondering why the hell they are. Pick on.
I was just saying I'm going to have to shoot off in just a minute because it's a little bit past my lunchtime, and
You need to get started. Well, let's just finish off just this last bit,
Yep.
and then we'll conclude.
5 votes are put forward electors. The buck stops with the legislature. And while some states have delegated that power to the governor or the secretary of state, they can take that power back whenever they want, which is why it is a very smart thing the Trump team is doing now, holding hearings with Senate committees in Pennsylvania and Michigan, whether a legislature is Republican, and convincing them rather than the courts. So please, people of Australia, do not believe what is being hurled at you by CNN or the New York Times or the ABC or anything. It's not true.
No, we'll finish with that.
don't believe anything that's being thrown at.
Anything that you've heard that is different to what she's saying.
Yes,
Can't
yeah.
do that.
Believe me, because I've got a flower in my hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what she's got stuck up her ass either, but seriously, it's a bit too
Yeah.
much for me.
Yeah.
I'll let you go because I know you've got to take care of your health. And we'll catch up with you next time on
Yep.
things that matter. And perhaps we'll just stick around after this. I've just got to ask you something.
Yep.
And then we will perhaps have a discussion around religion at some point, which will be rather captivating to say the least. So take care, everybody. Be safe.